Thank you. Well, she gave away that I'm a recovering lawyer, and I'm also tall. Can you hear me? I've moved the mic up. Good. I want to. Katie's was a great example of a community coming together, having great discussion, and making a difference about where they want to go in transportation and land use. I want to back up a little bit and talk about some of the reasons why communities are saying we need to approach transportation differently. We need to leverage what technology developments are available to us to reinvent how we move people. I work for an MPO in Dallas-Fort Worth. This is our plan. We tell the public throughout the best efforts of TxDOT and our local partners that we're going to spend $120 billion between now and 2040, and we're going to deliver a transportation product that is worse than the product we're delivering today. So, and I suspect that if you go to every transportation plan in every city in Texas, perhaps the US, you'll have the same story. We're going to do heroic efforts. We're going to spend the public money very carefully. We're going to be very smart transportation professionals, and we're going to deliver to you mobility outcomes that are worse than what you get today. It's like going and saying, I'm going to sell you smartphones, and the smartphone I sell you in the future is going to break down more and be less reliable than the smartphone you have today. So that thing, plus some of the collateral consequences. In our region alone, we're going to have a population equivalent to that of Dallas land themselves in the hospital because of transportation-related injuries. There's public health and environmental consequences to the way we do transportation. I think it's pretty well accepted that our infrastructure is less resilient to weather events due to the pavement and the parking lots covering up natural aquifers and whatnot. So there's flooding and other implications from the way we build out our system. So these things are just prompting local leaders, MPOs, to start thinking differently about transportation. We've had a very stable system, 50 years. The internet or the interstate's been pretty much built out, and systems get mature, and it becomes time to reinvent. And I think we're in that spot. And this is, we talk about before we talk about the technology, we have to talk about the policy and the vision of leaders. This was a meeting, these are the leaders of the mayors of the three largest cities in Tarrant County. And at a recent conference, they all embraced this notion that we can't keep building highways for one person to solve congestion. And that was really a wake-up call, it seems to me, to the planning community and to those like you who deliver transportation, that they want to see change. They don't want to see a transportation product being delivered that's worse tomorrow than it is today. And they want us to go back to the well and try to reinvent the way we do things to deliver safer, more effective outcomes. So these are the three Katie touched on. Three trends you want to keep your eye on. Vehicle automation. It's happening. It's been happening, some would say, for decades. Will it get here? Will full automation get here? We don't know for sure. But we do know that billions of dollars of effort is being invested into automating vehicles. And we may get there, we may not, but we will see smarter, more capable vehicles emerging that can communicate with each other and also handle most, if not all, of the driving functions on their own. Shared vehicles, again, how many of you 10 years ago used your smartphone to summon mobility? Well, I don't think any one of us did. Now it's routine for us to summon mobility, to share rides through our smartphone. And so shared mobility is here to stay, and there are estimates, credible estimates, that in our major Texas cities, a third or more of trips will be handled by shared mobility services by 2030. That's less than 15 years from now. Vehicle electrification. Electrification, it has some obvious environmental benefits, but it also provides a base for new vehicle types, more flexible vehicles, shuttles, pods, all sorts of transit vehicles, et cetera. And through the efforts primarily now from overseas, we're seeing an acceleration towards vehicle electrification. So the current estimates are by 2030, 2040 timeframe, a third or more of the vehicle fleet will be electrified. But I think from the full range of between electric bikes and the kind of form factor we have with our cars and pickups today, you're going to see new vehicle types emerging from the vehicle or on the electric vehicle platform. So, timing. And this picture is an excerpt from a very cute ad that Intel just started running this week with LeBron James being chauffeured around by a driverless car. He's very, very hesitant, and at the end he says, "I want one." So we're at a stage where major national advertisers, Google, now Intel, now many of your auto manufacturers touting their existing vehicles are telling us that vehicle automation, shared mobility, all of these things are within the time frame, a reasonable, fairly close time frame, enough that they're using advertising to try to affect us, prepare us for the products and services that are coming. The estimates I've seen is, again, 2030, between 10 and some people say, up to over half of our vehicle trips will be on automated shared vehicles. Again, that may be Silicon Valley hype, but a lot of people bet against the smartphone and the digital camera, and look where they are. So cities are using this to ask some fundamental questions. These are photos from the Los Angeles MPO's report asking maybe traditional sources or traditional ways of addressing congestion, traditional ways of using 30 to 40% of our physical space in cities to accommodate mobility is too much. Maybe we can use these technologies to get more capacity using technology rather than concrete. Maybe we can move our people around our communities using fewer vehicles, using less space, and be able to repurpose things like parking lots into higher valued uses. So city leaders, like those mayors, like the folks here in this area, are starting to say streets should be more than just pipelines for vehicles. They're going to have to evolve to accommodate new vehicle types. They've got to be able to accommodate new surface and aerial ways of delivering freight. Can we substitute for those FedEx boxes aerial and surface drones and robots providing some freight delivery? They've got to be pedestrian and bike friendly. And perhaps most importantly, from our city's perspective, can streets be places once again where folks can live their life, do commerce, meet each other, get some exercise, as opposed to be kind of fearful spaces where they're walking down a barren environment with cars whizzing by. So city leaders are saying, if we're going to attract the talent, if we're going to keep families in our communities, we're going to have to transform how we do streets. And they're going to be asking you, TxDOT, and their own engineers, how can we make streets more adaptable, more flexible, more human-friendly? And this is not a criticism of TxDOT. It's not a criticism of all the ways we've done, all the great work that's been done. These city leaders recognize we need robust inner-city expressways and highways. Within our communities, there's certainly going to be a place for the traditional expressways and high-speed environments. But they're saying once you back down to the arterials in the streets, we've got to think of transportation planning more comprehensively than just having streets be pipelines for vehicles. So as Katie said, they're thinking of ways to repurpose streets temporarily or permanently. They're saying the old game of my population's growing and I need a lot more space for cars is a sucker's bargain, when there are other ways to accommodate mobility that give their folks choices, often at much lower costs than essentially forcing people to buy a private automobile. So really 5 questions that we're seeing our city folks ask of us as planners and you as deliverers of transportation. They're asking, give short trips the same sort of priority that we currently give long trips. Why do we spend hundreds of millions of dollars to facilitate 30-mile commutes when it's really hard, as I found out last night, to walk 3 blocks to a restaurant with no sidewalks? Why is that 30-mile trip prioritized over a simple trip to walk and shop and worship and whatnot? So they're asking, let's look at transportation and facilitate trips on an equal basis and not always facilitate long-distance trips. Second, they're asking, give people multiple choices. Cars are expensive, and with all this technology, they're getting more expensive. And asking lower-income people to assume the cost of vehicle ownership, to do those long commutes, it's really a formula for impoverishing communities. So they're saying, give our folks more options, from biking to rideshare to transit, to supplement privately owned vehicles. And again, give people economic and transportation choices. They're saying, make more efficient use of streets. Again, rather than streets as a one function feature of moving vehicles at the highest speed, make each street a destination as well as a transit point. I mean, think of it this way. You want to go for a picnic. You want to go on a river that curves and has, natural vegetation and whatnot. You don't really do your picnic on the edge of a channelized river. For the most part, you have a choice. Well, what these civic leaders are saying is, we want to think of our streets and our transportation system akin to more of a natural river, attractive, multiple uses, as opposed to a single-use facility. Use price to manage congestion. We still allocate transportation for the most part by it's available to all and you wait in line. That's what congestion is about. Well, civic leaders are saying we probably don't have the political will or the ability to impose things like congestion pricing and whatnot for the most part. But to the extent that we can offer folks price transportation, from bike share to car share to ride sharing, we're in effect introducing price as a way to regulate demand in our communities, so our transportation systems will function more effectively. So they see surge pricing is really a form of congestion pricing. So the more that we can offer folks price transportation choices where people can see in real time what mobility is costing, you're introducing your price transportation in their communities and making them run more effectively, and again, giving people more choice. And finally, rather than viewing cities as having to change to accommodate automated vehicles, they're saying it should be the other way around. Ask not what you can do for automated vehicles, ask what you want automated vehicles to do for you as city. So they're saying, we learned some things from the interstates. Cities, were opened themselves up, and the interstates were run through, and neighborhoods were split, and there were some adverse consequences, and again, many positive consequences to that. What civic leaders are saying now is, we recognize these changes are coming, but we want to have automated vehicles serve, again, a more vibrant, broader streetscape. So you're going to see more things like this. A reimagine of Wilshire Boulevard. Looks pretty messy. But remember, every element of that will be connected electronically so it can work effectively. This is the way Wilshire Boulevard now is now. Carries 2,900. Use automated vehicles, sidewalks, and biking. You can actually have more diverse streetscapes and actually carry more people throughput. So the notion that complete streets and traditional ways of doing highways are at odds is really a false choice. You can accommodate more modes and get more people through your corridors. So finally, you're going to see robo-taxis, automated robo-taxis in the central cities, universities. Those will be coming in the next 5 to 10 years. Automated shuttles, we're actively experimenting with those in DFW and elsewhere. Very attractive form of low-speed transportation. Automated transit buses, again, possibility of much lower operating cost and operational benefits. Automated freight delivery, removing delivery trucks and having other forms of freight delivery. And finally, I think there will be plenty of room for us to own our own automated vehicles if we choose. They may look differently, but you'll see greater automation coming, and actually probably these will be coming again in the next decade or so. So final note, game changer. Texas was one of 10 regions in the world that won the Hyperloop One Global Challenge. So this is technology that shoots freight and people 600 miles an hour. So think of what it means if Texas cities were all 20 minutes apart by a transportation technology. We start functioning in Texas as one big city. We collaborate with our strengths and complement our weaknesses through this new form of transportation technology. Maybe it's a 1 in 10 shot, but if it happens, the way our cities are built and the way they operate could change pretty fundamentally through this technology. And with that, we're surfing on a very interesting edge of technology and policy changes, so let's stay on top of the wave. Thank you.